a growl of destiny. Fenrir is a creature whose existence shakes the very foundation of Norse mythology. He is not merely a wolf, but the living force of destruction, dread, and fate. Born from chaos, Fenrir is the son of Loki, the trickster god, and Angerboda, a giantess associated with darkness and sorrow. From this cursed union came a beast so terrifying that even the gods of Asgard feared his future. The seers prophesied that Fenrir would bring about the end of the world in a final battle known as Ragnarok, a cataclysm that would devour gods and mortals alike. This is not a tale of a villain. It is a tale of inevitability. Fenrir embodies the tension between divine power and unavoidable doom. Though raised in the golden halls of the gods, his presence was never welcomed. Odin, the All-Father, looked into the threads of fate and saw Fenrir's jaws covered in godly blood. And yet, he allowed the wolf to grow, because prophecy in Norse myth is not meant to be broken, only fulfilled. In this documentary, we will dive deep into Fenrir's origins, his growth under the uneasy gaze of Asgard, and the desperate attempts of the gods to restrain him. We will examine his parents Loki and Angerboda in vivid detail, uncovering why their offspring were feared above all. We will also explore the symbolic meaning of Fenrir as a creature beyond morality, as well as his role in the apocalypse of the Norse cosmos. Fenrir is not just a monster, he is fate-given form, the breaking point of a divine world built on order. Through him, the Norse myths challenge the idea of control. Can gods change fate, or are even gods prisoners of the stories written for them? As we begin this journey, remember, Fenrir is more than a beast. He is a roar echoing across time, warning that no power, no matter how high, can escape the grip of destiny. Blood of the gods, the origins of Fenrir. To understand Fenrir, we must first understand his blood. His father is Loki, the cunning shapeshifter and god of mischief. Though born among the gods, Loki was always an outsider, both feared and needed for his unpredictability. He was charming, sharp-witted, and dangerous, but his choices often led to chaos, and none was more fateful than his union with Angerboda was a giantess from Jotunheim, the realm of the frost giants. Her name means the one who brings grief, and her presence alone brought dread to the gods. Unlike the loud, destructive giants, Angerboda was quiet and cold. She lived in the Ironwood, a dark forest said to be the home of monsters. When Loki found her, what drew him was not just lust or curiosity, but something deeper, to broken beings drawn together by shadow. From this union came 3 children: Hel, the goddess of death, Jormungandr, the world's serpent, and Fenrir, the wolf. Among these, Fenrir was the most feared. Even as a cub, his strength grew rapidly. The gods knew he would become too powerful to control. Odin's seers saw visions of his fangs tearing into flesh, his howls shaking the roots of Yggdrasil, and his body growing large enough to swallow worlds. Still, the gods chose to raise him in Asgard, hoping to keep their enemy close. At first, Fenrir showed no signs of violence. He was wild, yes, but also curious. He played with Tyr, the god of war and law, the only one brave enough to feed him. Tyr saw the intelligence behind those glowing eyes. Fenrir was not mindless. He was aware, thoughtful, and conscious of how the gods feared him. But as he grew, so did the tension. His size became monstrous, his power unmistakable. The gods realized that this was no ordinary creature. He was not just the son of chaos. He was the end waiting to happen. Fenrir's origin is a perfect storm. The blood of a trickster, the womb of a sorrow-bringer, and the fate of a destroyer. He was not born evil. He was born into a world that feared what it could not control. That fear would soon shape his destiny. The binding chains of deceit and courage. The gods could not ignore the growing danger. Fenrir's body had become massive, towering above even the tallest warriors. His jaw, it was said, could reach the heavens and the earth at once. His strength outmatched even Thor's. Though he had done no crime, his very existence was a threat. And so, Odin made a grim decision. Fenrir had to be bound. The gods first approached him with trickery, disguised as a game. They forged a heavy chain called lighting and asked Fenrir to break it, claiming it was a test of his strength. The wolf agreed, eager to prove himself. He shattered lighting with ease. Next came a stronger chain. The gods grew desperate. Odin then sent messengers to Svartalfheim, the realm of the dwarves, to craft a binding unlike any other. The dwarves created Gleipnir ribbon thin as silk, but forged from 6 impossible ingredients: the sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the breath of a fish, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, and the spittle of a bird. Though soft in appearance, Gleipnir was unbreakable. When the gods brought Gleipnir to Fenrir, he grew suspicious. Why would they use something that looked so fragile? He sensed betrayal. To protect himself, he demanded one condition: he would only allow the gods to bind him if one of them placed a hand in his mouth as a gesture of trust. Only Tyr stepped forward, the god of justice and war. Tyr was Fenrir's only true companion in Asgard. He met Fenrir's eyes, said nothing, and placed his right hand between the wolf's fangs. The gods tied Gleipnir around Fenrir's legs. When he tried to break free, he failed. Realizing the betrayal, he bit down and tore Tyr's hand away. From that day, Fenrir howled in rage. The gods drove a sword into his mouth, forcing it open, and bound him deep in a remote cave called Lyngvi. The binding of Fenrir is more than a story of fear. It is a tale of betrayal, sacrifice, and the painful cost of prophecy. The gods chose deceit, and Fenrir remembered it. The prophecy, Ragnarok and the wolf's revenge. In Norse mythology, nothing is more feared than Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. It is not just an end, but a destined collapse. The world will burn, the gods will fall, and from the ashes, a new world will rise. At the center of this prophecy stands Fenrir, no longer bound, but free and furious. The seers of Asgard spoke of signs: the death of Balder, the sun turning black, and 3 freezing winters without summer. When these omens appear, the wolf will break his chains. Gleipnir, though forged by impossible means, will snap like thread under the force of fate. Fenrir will tear free from Lyngvi, his roar shaking mountains, his eyes burning with betrayal. The gods' greatest fear will be realized. During Ragnarok, the heavens will split. Fenrir will charge into battle, his jaws wide open, devouring everything in his path. His upper jaw will reach the sky, the lower touching the earth. Fire will spill from his breath. The target of his fury is clear. The All-Father, knowing this moment would come, marches to war in golden armor, wielding his spear Gonir. At his side stands the Einherjar, the fallen warriors of Valhalla. But it is not enough. Fenrir, fueled by rage and the memory of betrayal, overwhelms the god who once tried to raise him. With one bite, he swallows Odin whole. Yet Fenrir's triumph is short. Odin's son, Vidar, rises to avenge his father. Silent and powerful, Vidar wears a special boot made from all the leather scraps in the world. He plants one foot on Fenrir's jaw and, with divine strength, forces it open. With his sword, he stabs deep into the wolf's heart, ending the beast's rampage. The death of Fenrir marks a turning point. Though he falls, he fulfills his destiny. Odin is gone, Asgard is crumbling, and the old world fades. But in Norse myth, death is not defeat. Fenrir was never evil. He was a force that balanced power, a shadow cast by light. His role in Ragnarok was not vengeance, it was purpose. Fenrir's story reminds us, even gods cannot escape fate, and sometimes the monsters we fear the most are the ones we create ourselves. Symbols and interpretations. Fenrir beyond the myth. Fenrir is more than a beast in chains or a destroyer of gods. His story carries powerful symbolic meaning that echoes far beyond the pages of Norse myth. He represents chaos, yes, but also truth, rebellion, and the consequences of fear-driven control. To understand Fenrir fully, we must look beyond his physical form and into the cultural, philosophical, and even psychological layers of his existence. In ancient Norse culture, fate was not seen as a path to avoid, but a destiny to fulfill. The gods themselves were not immortal in the traditional sense. They aged, bled, and died. They knew their end would come. Fenrir, as the harbinger of that end, is not evil, he is inevitable. His rise and vengeance reflect the cycle of life, destruction, and rebirth. Just as winter must come before spring, the world must end before it can begin anew. The act of binding Fenrir speaks volumes. The gods raised him, but never trusted him. They feared what he might become, and so they lied to him, betrayed him, and locked him away. That fear led to the very future they were trying to prevent. Fenrir's rage was not born from cruelty, it was born from betrayal. In that sense, he becomes a symbol of what happens when those in power try to suppress what they cannot control. Fenrir also embodies the primal part of the self-wild, instinctive force within each person that society tries to restrain. In psychology, some scholars compare Fenrir to the shadow in Jungian theory, the hidden part of ourselves that we fear, but must integrate. If ignored, it becomes destructive. If understood, it brings strength. Over time, Fenrir has appeared in literature, video games, and modern art, often reimagined as both villain and hero. In these retellings, he is no longer simply a monster. He is a tragic figure, a creature born into prophecy, condemned before he could choose his path, and remembered for fulfilling a role he never asked for. His chains remind us of fear. His howl reminds us of truth, and his death reminds us that every system, no matter how strong, must eventually fall. Fenrir is not a lesson in how to defeat chaos, but a reminder of what happens when we fail to understand it. Legacy of the Wolf. Final reflections on Fenrir. Fenrir's tale does not end with his death in Ragnarok. His legacy lives on in the myths that shape the Norse worldview, and in the questions his story forces us to ask. Was Fenrir a villain or simply a victim of fear? Was his fury unjust or the natural result of betrayal? These questions echo through centuries, making Fenrir one of the most complex and misunderstood figures in all mythology. To the Norse, Fenrir was not just a warning, he was a mirror. His story reflected their harsh reality, that even the gods are vulnerable, that power cannot prevent fate, and that fear often creates the very thing it dreads. The myths do not offer comfort, they offer clarity. Fenrir is not about escaping doom, but facing it with eyes open. In today's world, Fenrir continues to inspire and challenge us. In literature, he is seen as the misunderstood outcast. In games and media, he is reimagined as a force of nature, sometimes villainous, sometimes heroic. Modern readers are drawn to his pain, his anger, and his quiet beginnings as a creature that only wanted to be accepted. There is a deep tragedy in his arc from innocent pup to feared destroyer. But his symbolism extends even further. He stands for the truth that institutions, no matter how divine, are not immune to decay. He reminds us that suppression leads to rebellion, and that honesty, even in the face of doom, is more noble than deceit. His bond with Tyr, one of mutual respect and ultimate sacrifice, gives us a glimpse of what might have been if trust had prevailed over fear. Fenrir also lives on through his children. According to myth, after his death, his sons Skoll and Hati continue his legacy. These wolves chase the sun and moon across the sky, and during Ragnarok, they will finally catch and devour them. Even in death, Fenrir's influence shapes the very cycle of time. In the end, Fenrir is not just the wolf who killed Odin. He is the voice of prophecy fulfilled, of power confronted, and of truths that cannot be chained. His howl still echoes through the ages, not as a cry of terror, but as a final declaration that no cage is eternal and no fate is unjustified.